That wasn't supposed to happen. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Go Hunt. We fed Bigfoot Cheez-Its and made him fat. Our cast tonight is Dave Packard, Super Trucker, Sam Alexander, the artist formerly known as Cheez-Its, Vince H, neither high nor dry, and I'm Mike Gonsalves, whose laptop looks like Theoden, pre-Gandalf headbonk. Around the campfire tonight, new shooters, dots or irons when learning to shoot. And for those of you guys wondering what the hell that was all about, we've been struggling with the recordy doodad that we stream from. It's not playing the music, nor is it accepting Sam's proper microphone. So
Sam downloaded a strange and possibly suspect Chinese antivirus, and now everything's not working.
It sounds like he downloaded a pro viral.
It's like a probiotic, but for your computer.
A provirotic?
Too far.
He's making
he's actually signing in the there's like one person watching who actually knows what's going on, what he's saying, and it's not me.
Yeah.
So anyway, tonight what he said. Anyway, tonight I had a question for everybody, and if you guys in the chat have thoughts too, share them. But when my daughter was 4 years old, I bought her a Savage Rascal, which is basically a single shot 22 long rifle. Got her the pink stock, of course, because that's the one she wanted. She calls it her pink gun. She loves shooting her pink gun. Problem with pink gun is that, like, some years ago, it had a peep sight on it, a rear peep sight, similar to an M16's. And that just fell off. It had a nut on the back of it securing it to the sight post, and it's just OFF off. I don't know what the fuck. I found it in my truck like a year and a half ago, and I was like, oh, I could put this back on. So I went to put it back on, and the nut was gone, and so it just fell out again. And I was like, all right, well, she's young enough. The rear sight post that it screws into is just like this little loopy-doo, like an oval. So I just taught her to use the oval as the rear sight and center the front sight in the middle of her giant oval, and she's been hitting the target. Like, it's good enough, but I want to do better, and she's not real interested in shooting much else other than her pink gun currently. So I did some Amazoning, and I figured since we've already had the focus on the front sight talk, and the future of guns is optics, I went to Amazon and I got an optics rail for $17 for the Savage Rascal. My question for you guys, and then, I'll share my opinions after you guys, but where do you stand on teaching a new shooter? Would you prefer to teach them using a dot from the very, very get-go so that you can focus on things like stance, grip, trigger press, using the safety, the actual manual of arms of the gun, etc., versus because, focusing on the front sight, align the rear sight and the front sight, like, don't look at the target, look at the front, like that's a lot. Put a dot on the gun, let them have fun shooting the gun. And anyway, I digress. Vince, what do you think?
My thought is, first, which gun
Are they learning on?
Right, because if you're learning on one gun, I might say iron sights, and if you're learning on another one, I might say dot.
That's a fair point, considering a lot of irons on. I don't much like lever actions because I don't like the sights. I don't much like peep sights, to be honest.
Behold,
Ooh,
le single shot, tiny 22 with the little, adjustable stock on it.
Pretty.
Yeah, this is the fanciest, like, kids 22 you could like the little cricket, but it's got a chassis. It's kind of funny. I need to put a huge scope on it as a joke.
Put a Guardian on it.
It's been on everything else.
I was gonna say shoot a dove with it, but it's a rifle.
It's too far, Mike. So for rifle, I definitely think start at the very, very beginning, right? You're going to start with a rifle. You should, I would put the dot on there just so you're not having, you can teach them the mechanics of the rifle first, and they're not having to think about front sight focus and your target beyond it and the rear sight and trying to line all that up. They're just focused on the mechanics of the firearm and pasting that little red dot on their target and looking at their target. That's number one. Two, I would then move to an iron-sighted rifle so you can teach them the fundamentals of iron sights. And then going from there, you go to handguns, like small handguns, 22s, things like that. I'm definitely in the camp of I would not put a pistol with a dot in a kid's hand, because they're going to see that dot shooting all over the place, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for them to get lined up.
Mm-hmm.
And even like when I first started shooting with a dot, I was like, man, that dot is moving around a lot and it's just shaking there. And I'm like, I mean, that's happening with the iron sights too, but it's really pronounced when you have the dot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think starting out with the pistol, I actually think iron sights. And then maybe a dot later once fundamentals are down with the pistol, but definitely rifle, especially very beginning shooters, young shooters, dot on the rifle and then teach them on a different rifle that has iron sights.
I like that.
Shotguns are shotguns. You can, yeet.
You can put a dot on a shotgun or not, whatever. You're right. Yeet it up.
Put the bead on the thing and put the trigger.
It just put the and then go boom.
Yeah.
Speaking of shotguns, I'm a little perturbed because I ordered a different shotgun choke removal tool and tried to get the choke out of my Rite. And I think John Patton might have been right. I think I might have hammered the full gauge or the full choke into it to the point it's not coming back out.
Did you try the blowtorch method?
I don't possess a blowtorch, and if I did blowtorch it, I'd have to do it from the choke out because it's got that wrap on it, and you don't want to burn the wrap off. And I don't know if you can do that on the choke. It might melt the choke.
I don't think it'll melt your choke.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
It's tempered steel. And it's a blowtorch.
Okay.
Like a little propane torch is not going to do
butane.
And
butane's a bastard gas.
And if it's fusion welded, it's not coming out anyway, melted or not. So, whatever. Anyway, Dave, thoughts on the...
Okay. How about now?
Oh,
yeah,
there.
There it is. Found
I'm
it.
here?
Yeah.
That sounds like you.
That sounded like the proper microphone.
I can push the button and commit it.
Okay, now you're just doing that on purpose.
Hey, Mike, did you know you...
So, Dave, what do you think about irons versus dots?
We're absolutely sure it's working. Sorry, I have to make sure this is working because otherwise I'm going to throw this thing across the room.
Yes, this is your proper microphone. You're good.
That I'll have to pay most of you back. It turns out it was a setting. I'm not sure if it was AVG or not, actually. Either way, inside the freaking actual input settings, like way down in the settings, there's a mute button. I'm sitting there trying to test the damn audio. I'm pushing the test audio button. And I've done this probably 10 times. And then I looked over and went, oh, look, there's a tiny little mute button. And sure enough.
That is goddamn infuriating.
Oh, you have no idea.
I wonder.
I have some idea.
I wonder if the audio, like this whole conversation, just to be covered by like test music, like elevator music, do 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 do, like while we're trying to talk.
like I
And
said,
right as when I'm
we're
about
gonna-
to intro, someone else does.
We're gonna
That
have to rip the freaking stream off of StreamYard for the audio, because otherwise, like we were talking about before the show, all you'd hear me in the background is going, "Hello, hello, hello."
Sam, test
Oh.
music.
Oh, test
Yeah.
music, good idea.
Yeah, do music. Oh, yep, there it is.
Well,
Yep.
Man, it sounds just like the intro.
that's what you
I
get
did.
for having AVG.
It's
That
like,
is exactly what I thought of when you said Chinese antiviral. And
like,
I will admit,
sir, did you unmute it?
may be
Yes,
dumb
I
crap.
unmuted it.
It may be dumb
I'm
crap,
already unmuted. I can't unmute any further.
but it did strip some stupid crap that the computer had picked up over the years. So
Well, that's good.
anyway, I have to go
Good,
upstairs
man.
and get a hat because people are apparently complaining because my head's so big they don't know who I am.
It's
Oh, I
just
thought they
washing
were-
out your camera.
I thought they were complaining about the sheen off my forehead.
Look at that. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
here, I forgot. Like, there we go. Meow. Looks bad with
Oh my
Someone-
that.
God, Vince,
Hat
you're
on.
glowing.
We haven't actually said it, but AR Drew, get like everybody else and get on Rumble because you're the only one on YouTube.
Yeah,
If you
why
get
are
on-
you on?
Yeah,
well,
motherfucker.
you have Rumble.
Yeah, get on Rumble so I can ban you more.
On accident, on purpose.
Can't wait to
Oh,
see
on
you at
purpose this
GunCon.
time.
Can't wait to ban you either.
Montana Dirt Roads is on
Kirby.
YouTube, but he's driving, so he can't switch.
That's fair.
That's all the
It's,
more reason to comment.
Mostly
Get the
because we
Montana
like
Dirt
to.
Roads. Do it. You're a bitch.
We're there. You are. Attaboy.
There we go.
We like pushing the boundaries and trying to get kicked off YouTube right at the end of our shows.
I guess
So-
they didn't count what I was holding as a gun.
La la la. Mute user for 5 minutes.
It was just a 22, right?
Yeah.
That's what YouTube said. It's just a 22. Can't kill self with. Watch me. YouTube's
I
like,
don't-
oh, don't worry. That it's a Ruger. It can't fire without the magazine in it. We won't shut this stream down.
I do the world of service, and every time I look at a Mark IV in a shop, I just disable the magazine disconnect.
Let's circle back around to Dave and the.
He's back.
That's hilarious.
Sam
Andrew's
banned
banned on
Drew
Rumble.
and then left.
I don't know.
Okay.
I grew up shooting irons, and shit, that's what I shot for a long time. And then I got a 22 with like one of them shitty little pencil fucking scopes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the
bigger.
3/4
like
inch.
those.
No,
Yeah.
those were 1/2 inch or 5/8. No, they weren't
I think
even
it was
3/4.
5/8, something like that. It tiny.
They're
They
just
were-
like little 4x or what,
Oh, they
2x
were
or what?
like a 3 through 9, and they were
Uh-huh.
they
It's
they
3
had a
to 9
field of
by, like,
view.
20.
Okay, yeah, at 20 yards, I think you had a field of view the size of a quarter.
Nice.
So I had one of those, and that shooting that I was okay with, or I did okay, but it made me appreciate irons a little more, and so I ended up just taking that scope off. Shot irons.
Oh,
for
do you
a
want a
little bit,
story
and
about
then
one
I
of
got-
those scopes?
Do what?
Do you want a story about one of those scopes?
In just a hot second.
Okay.
Let him finish.
So I ended up taking that off, and then I got spoiled with like an actual magnified, like 3 to 9 by 40.
Oh,
And I don't have a lot of experience with dots, but I know my kids can pull up on any one of my rifles with with just a scope and be just fine. And I think that they should learn irons first. That way they're not completely reliant on a dot if you don't have one. I understand there's a time when it's like, yeah, just getting rounds down range and having fun and not like turning them off of shooting. Like if they're not having a good time, they're not going to want to do it again.
Right.
So
Right.
I see that aspect with the dots.
Where I was going with it though was like, I mean, that could be one whole day. Like what I described could be a single day. So there's not any real time in between learning one and then the other necessarily.
I really should have not unmuted myself before moving the microphone around.
I think,
You never muted. We heard you wander into the room, fart,
There's-
belch. You
Oh
pissed in
shit!
your
You heard
trash
all those
can.
things I said about Mike?
all the sweet, sexy things you said about me. Yes, I heard.
Oh no, the sweet
boot
sexy
you
things
again,
were about your
sir.
mom and your sister
Well, I mean,
at the same time.
I know you weren't involved then.
Sam walks in like, man, Mike looks like a deep fried chicken breast tonight.
Did you hear any of the discussions about Mike's VHS tape in the pre-show?
Can we not?
No,
Can we just
but-
move on?
All I know is you started that sentence with, "Did you hear anything about Mike's V?" And I was like, nope.
You can scroll back up through the chat. It is there.
Sam muted himself, but everybody else instead.
For those in the audio, if you choose to come to Rumble and look up the chat, feel free.
Don't do it.
Warning,
it, no.
critical error, audio input disabled.
So anyway, I kind of liken this to like learning a manual when you learn how to drive, because once you learn how to do a manual, you can drive anything. And same thing, you rely on the automatic. You never learn how to shoot irons. You never will learn how to shoot irons. Like you learn that you rely on the dot your whole life, and suddenly somebody hands you a gun with irons, and you're like, "Fuck, do I do with this?"
What is this?
You take it to
What-
the store.
Where's
and
my
you get a dot
optic?
for it.
Bob, I need a bob on this gun.
No, that's what you teach, like, okay, this is the spinny thing that makes you go left and right, and this one makes you go faster, and this one makes you stop. And once they get that down, then you work in like the extra the extra thing.
I will say that the aperture sights on that cricket are fucking junk.
Yeah,
They're terrible. Or not the cricket, the rascal.
It's
You
the
know
same
what?
fucking thing.
Don't buy
I
a
didn't
cricket.
I didn't even think about it, but actually the first thing my son shot was a competition BB gun with an aperture sight on it. That was the first thing I had him shoot, and he picked it up really, really easily, which is, I guess, a little bit different than iron sights, because you don't have to. You just put the dot in the middle of the circle. It's
Yeah.
actually a little bit easier. Well, actually, with those competition sights, it was a circle. Like the front sight was an open circle, and the rear sight was a larger open circle, and you line them up.
Can you ban Drew again real quick?
I don't know. I'm
Gladly.
fan this Let's Go Hunt podcast guy.
Yeah,
AR Drew in the
5 minutes.
AR Drew in the chat said after I meet Bob on Friday, he's gonna call me the Ether Bunny.
Well,
That's messed up.
anyway,
Message was removed by moderator. Yes. This is why I should never be president.
you're just gonna start banning people.
I believe exile should be a legal punishment. It's neither cruel nor unusual. It's only slightly unusual because in modern history we kind of, for some reason, stopped doing it.
It's only cruel depending on what nation you send them to.
Well, that's the Wheel of Fortune is going to become.
Ooh.
It's gonna be like
Congratulations, you get
televised- Exactly. It's gonna be like a televised-
Ethiopia.
No. Like literally, like Wheel of Fortune, and the winner gets sent to like I don't know. I don't want to send him anywhere too nice.
But how's he gonna win? How do you accumulate points
Cleveland?
in your?
You play Wheel of Fortune.
You play Wheel
the
of
sooner you
Fortune for
lose-
banishment.
No, for your standing and where you're gonna get sent.
Is this Wheel
And
of banishment?
the fewer points you have, there's a list of countries you get sent to. Actually,
Alright.
at the very bottom, we just drop you in the middle of the ocean with a little rubber raft. Anyway,
Oh,
moving
I
on.
was
called a
hoping,
dinghy.
but we don't inflate the raft for you, nor does it come with any compressed air.
Well, that's if you like quit. Here's the little valve. I hope you got big lungs.
Make it Survivor, but it's more real, and that's how you end up on Survivor. You lose Wheel of Fortune.
It's like the Hunger Games or even Gamer.
Yeah, but no, he's right. You start off at Jeopardy Like, oh yeah, and the guy who keeps winning at Jeopardy doesn't end up dropping down below to what did
Oh
you bring
man,
up? Wheel of Fortune. There we go.
that's just really high stakes. You imagine sweating through your suit every night trying not to lose Jeopardy.
That's why they call it Jeopardy, because if you lose, you're in jeopardy.
Exactly.
Uh-oh, we hit double jeopardy. Oh no.
Oh, this is great. Maybe I should
Double
be pissed
Jeopardy, straight to Price is Right.
off. Well, the Price is Right will be great for the guys who are thieves.
Well, you guessed $1 over. I'm sorry. That's the guillotine for you. Ka-chunk. Anyway, Sam, what do you think about kids?
You're
and-
going to have to run me through some of the
Oh
beginning.
wait, hold on.
because
I want to
wasn't really
tell
listening.
my
Oh
story.
yeah, Vince has a story about.
I have a
scopes.
tiny optic story.
Oh, I interrupted it. I apologize.
That tiny Tasco scope that now comes on like some BB guns,
Uh-huh.
because that's what it's been relegated to, because that's where it kind of belongs, if even. My dad had one of those on his Glenfield Model 60, which is a licensed copy of the Marlin Model 60 sold by Glenfield. It was probably made by Marlin too, but that was his 22. My entire, like, he still has it, but that was his 22 that he carried around and shot all the time. Anyway, there was this dog that got into our chicken pen when I was a kid, and around the house you could see for a good ways in pretty much every direction, and straight to the north of the house there's a hill about 400 yards away. Well, this dog gets in there, and my dad is out there, but has to run back to the house to get the 22. The dog takes off to the north and is running across the face of this hill. My dad steps out to the west of the house, free-handed, standing there holding the gun, rips off 5 rounds, and you just hear that dog yelp at 400 yards with that tiny little scope on it. He hit that dog running 45 degrees away from him at a dead run with that old 22, shooting whatever 22 ammunition he happened to have laying around. Best shot I've ever seen him take.
Impressive.
I mean, of course he did rip off a couple, but semi-auto,
400
He walked
At
it in.
400 yards, semi-auto, like you're not going to do it with one, and the 22's too wobbly. It's
Accuracy by
volume. Yes.
We went out there, like, my dad's like, that'll work for now. And we went out there like a week and a half later and followed the buzzards to where the dog finally keeled over and gave up. But yeah, that
Nice.
was that's actually one of the coolest things I ever saw him do.
That's pretty cool. That's a
Yeah.
cool thing.
Still stuck in my mind.
Core memory.
Like, whoa.
I also have shot at dogs, but didn't actually hit them. We used to have this husky that kept eating our freaking chickens. Well, no, this is before he ate the chickens. Because if he had ate the chickens, I would have tried harder. That's right. Anyway, it kept digging. So I'd scared it. So I'd variously scare it off of whatever gun I had on hand. One time it was my Uberti cattleman. So my single action army, just running 90 degrees across from me, taking various pot shots at it. The other time I chased it by dropping 7.62 by 39 rounds into the hill behind it. I rubber buckshot another time too. Should have just killed that dog, because it did eventually break in and kill all my parents' chickens. Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, Mike's dead. Ha!
Sights.
Not my
So-
turn for once.
When it comes to teaching a new shooter, do you prefer starting on
Specifically
iron
kids.
sights or dots? Yeah, specifically kids.
Specifically kids, huh? I am going to say, if it is a fairly young child, I would start them on a dot, just to simplify all of the actual shooting mechanics. We're talking like my daughter's age, so like 5, 6, 7 years old, somewhere in there.
Mhm.
Once they get a little bit older, then bump them up to the real deal now. Because at that point, if they're really little, like just give them a red dot and say put the red dot on what you want to shoot, because that simplifies the process for them, gets them enjoying shooting. They can hit things and go, "Yay, I hit that!" And then as they get a little bit older, AR Drew's trying to bribe me by gifting subscriptions. So Let's Go Hunt podcast. Let's nip that shit in the bud right now. Mute for 5 minutes. Thank you, AR Drew, but you cannot bribe me, sir.
What is this membership? I want a membership. I just I went to pee and I come back and there's memberships being gifted by AR Drew. And
I
I'm
know.
like,
I just
I didn't
think
get no
it's funny
membership.
that he's yep.
Is he
I love how Vince
lashing
was
out at
gifted.
you?
I cannot be bought, sir. That's not true. Just send me enough money and I'll stop banning you.
Everyone has a price.
Gideon Optics, why do I hate AR Drew? I don't hate AR Drew. I just started banning him by accident in a different stream that I'm a moderator of. And now that he's here, I can do it on purpose. That does not still beat the fact that I once banned somebody on that other stream twice in a row with my back pocket. We don't want to hear about that, though. Anyway,
Bob, the bottom line is the head of that other stream giving Sam any sort of moderation powers in the YouTube chat was such a mistake. And now it's carried over to everywhere.
it's for entertainment purposes only. Anyway, I would. So a younger child. This is my thought, just off the cuff. I would start him on a red dot. Actually, if we're talking little like rifle, like little 22. I know crickets suck, so like 10-22. So for the simplicity of the fact that put the dot on the target, shoot it, yay. And then when they get a little bit older, then I'd scale them up to iron sights, and they can't use anything else till they can use iron sights.
So taking the irons off of the 10-20. So currently, I need a dot for the little Savage Rascal. It's basically the same thing as a cricket. It's just made by Savage instead of cricket. And if the sights are the same, then they're probably the same shitty. Anyway,
Is it just a normal pick reel?
The rail that I put on it, yeah, it's just a normal pick rail.
Gideon Rock.
Rock?
Mhm.
The Rock. Let's look that up.
And
I was wondering.
But those are my thoughts.
Okay.
And those, I don't know where I fall against you guys on that one, because again, you were talking about it and I was kind of listening in the background, but I was kind of focused on the microphone issue.
You basically said what I said.
Oh,
Yeah.
Look at that. Great minds think alike.
Yeah, the Rock does look good.
Though
Rock,
with the
very good.
dictatorial addition of they're not allowed to use anything else until they have mastered irons after that.
No, I totally agree with that.
Dude, I haven't mastered
the
irons
red-
and I
the
shot
red-
competitively.
The red dot gets them the fun and into it for the joy. After they are wrapped up with the red dot, then it's you. If you can't hit crap at 300 yards with iron sights on, especially like an AR, especially if they're like E2, like fixed front sight post, fixed rear on a AR, especially rifle length, extra rifle length. Yeah, then they're on their own.
That's the Rock, Dave?
Yeah.
The only iron
is-
sights I do not care about are stupid buckhorn sights.
Which ones are those? I've heard the term. I just don't.
Dumb ones, where it's like you have a front.
The dumb
your
ones.
front-
Good, real descriptive.
Yeah, you've got a normal like bead for a front sight, and then on the rear end, it's shaped like kind of like buckhorns. It's got a deeper notch, and then it comes up, and then it goes swoop out to the
Oh,
sides.
You mean
And-
like a
You know what?
10-22 rear sight?
I don't know if I've ever shot a
No,
10-22.
no. Buckhorn is like, so imagine almost a ghost ring, but with a little, like some opening at the top. And then above that, coming up further, is two larger posts that kind of do the same thing that curve back towards the center. And what that is it's the original BDC. So for the closest shots, you'd use the center of that semicircle at the bottom. For a little bit further out, you would post that dot like in the middle of the where the tips are trying to touch. And then for way out there shots, you angle up even further and hover it in between the two
horns.
larger horns on it to, so you can see better out there and you can just lift it up a little bit further. You'd have to really learn your rifle and how it shoots to make that work, but that's kind of like the idea of it. And there's different variations of it, some of them like more complex than others, but that's the basic idea.
I just looked it up. I think that's a pretty fascinating way to get some range out of your rifle, because if you tuck your rifle up and you're trying to shoot 400 or 500 yards and you go to elevate your barrel, you're going to lose sight of your target and you're just going to be blasting at air, hoping you mortar it in there. With that kind of sight, that's pretty cool. You can just angle your barrel up, but like you said, you need trigger time behind that rifle to really, really know it.
It's actually the same thing that it's kind of what Elmer Keith used to do with his pistols, except he kind of did the opposite. He would take the ramp on the front side of his pistol and he would notch lines in it going down the ramp on the front sight, and he would elevate it to where that line was in line with his rear sight, and with both eyes open he could superimpose the sights on the target even way out there, and he was capable of easy for him hits on like deer-sized game out to 400 yards with like a 45 Colt.
Damn.
Standing freehand without resting on anything. But
So
that's
he would
because
do
Elmer
that
Keith was a
elevating
freak.
the front sight.
He would do it. He'd be elevating the front sight, but rather than have like, a buckhorn sight where you're putting it on different parts of the rear side, he's putting lines on the front sight.
Yeah.
So that, and he's lining
he's
it up.
just
that
flushing
way.
up. He's using his rear sight for elevation, and that's.
I've read
like
I
a
read
bow
several
sight.
stories. Yeah, I read several stories of him doing that to try and finish off game that, guided clients had wounded.
There's a dude, there's a smaller channel on YouTube, 11 Bang Bang is the name. A couple of nice farmer boys from, I think it's on the Dakotas. Anyway, he's out there with a Richards Mason conversion. I think it's a new one, a U-Birdie, which is they
Ooh,
take an
those are
18.
cool.
Yeah, well, for those who don't know, it's an 1861. What starts off life is basically an 1861 Colt black powder revolver, and then back in the day, people would convert Richards Mason as a gunsmith that would convert them to take cartridges. Anyway, long story short, he's got a video out there of him shooting black powder 45 long Colt and just schwacking a target at like 325, one-handed, just offhand. People was like, "Oh."
I don't remember
I
if it
wish
was
I was that
Jerry
good.
Michulik or not that I saw, but it was on the Discovery Channel back when the Discovery Channel was cool and played like really cool gun stuff. But this dude set up balloons at 1,000 yards with a 9mm. It was a 9mm Luger revolver that he was using, and just mortaring them in there. He was like, it took 5 or 6 shots, but that sixth shot, that balloon popped, and he was like, oh. Because he took the first shot and he was like, oh, that was about 200 yards too short, and he aimed a little higher, and he goes, oh, 100 yards short. Oh, that one was like just too short, and then he got it. It was pretty cool. 1,000-yard shot with a revolver.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm just gonna summarize. I think all humans should know how to use iron sights and use them well. But I'd start off a little kid on a red dot.
I agree that all humans should definitely know how to use red dots. It's kind of like knowing how to drive a manual.
You mean everyone should know how to use iron sights?
Irons.
Everyone should know how to use a manual as well, but it's a dying art.
It's not a dying art. It's just annoying.
No, a manual is a dying art. Irons are not a dying art. Don't get me wrong.
No,
I'm not
I'm
saying
talking
irons
about
are.
a manual. Just because I know how to doesn't mean I want to. Every time I'm stopped at a red light on a really steep hill, I sit there and think to myself, I'm really glad I don't have a manual. Vroom.
Okay,
I'm really good at steep hills.
A little
and
Japanese
stoplights.
car with 15 horsepower and a manual transmission. The answer is no, you do not want that. But like American muscle car, diesel truck,
Yeah.
Your four-wheel drive off-roader, like that's yes.
I'll be honest. There are Prados out there that have a stick, just like there's Forerunners out there that have a stick. I thought about it long and
Oh, you
hard
wanna-
before I bought the one I did, and I was like, you know what? I drove manual Toyotas with KZ1s in them in Japan. They were like the big giant box weird Toyota trucks that they had, but they were just awful to drive. They were terrible manual transmissions. So
So would a manual Prado have a little Japanese woman trapped inside of it?
I'm
I'd be
sure
a
it
little
would.
Japanese man.
No, I was gonna ask if you wanted to, sit there and play with a little Japanese woman's knob. Hey, Mike, that's not
now-
a woman inside your car.
Now I'm glad I did get the one with the woman inside it, because then I'd be playing with some. Yeah, no,
Yeah. Yep.
no.
All right,
Why?
cool.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Stop.
So
My big pickup's getting a 6-speed swap.
yeah, you told us that. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
You know why? Dodge.
Dodge.
And they can't make a fucking automatic transmission save their goddamn life.
Nope.
So
That's true.
Are they still using Allison's?
they have never used Allison's.
That's Chevy.
Oh,
They use
sorry. I know.
Allison's. But if they
ASN.
Allison's.
Asses.
Oh, is that AESYN?
No.
Oh.
Anyway.
Anyway,
All right. So anyway, on to dots and stuff. I agree that everybody should know how to use Rails or open sites.
What?
Jesus, irons. There we go. Mike had a strong. Call me a bondulance. I agree with getting them a dot early, like when they're kids, and you say put the dot on the target and you pull the trigger and they go okay. And as they learn to do that, you can focus on putting the buttstock in the right place and getting them a cheek weld and stuff like that. And then once they have all those fundamentals, then you can be like, all right, now all you have to do is line these sights up and put the front sight post on the target. And you already know how to do all the other stuff. You just need to do this extra step. It feels like just one extra step you can take away from the learning process early on to make it easier and more fun for them, because things can, let's be real. Life is overwhelming. Adulting is overwhelming, and growing up and wanting to grow up was the worst mistake I ever made as a kid. But it happens to all of us, and we have to deal with it.
okay, Gen Xer.
But
Some of us were perfectly fine growing up and becoming adults.
no, adulting sucks.
I know. I
I'll,
actually rather like being able to own things that I bought and actually being able to decide what I want to eat for dinner.
The fact that when you're exhausted and you come home and the child is like, I'm hungry, and you're like, adulting sucks sometimes.
Called planning, sir. You have a plan what you're making for dinner before you get home. Mm.
That's
You
the
have
problem.
one kid.
See, Dave, I don't know how the fuck. I think you do it out of necessity, because you guys don't you can't order a pizza. You just fucking have to make something every day.
I haven't ordered a pizza in 6 years. Shit costs too much.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Ordering out a lot sucks. It's expensive. But
So we talked about
I did
red dots.
order out one time, but it was a cottontail running across my yard.
hell
It was
yes.
22 open sites.
And then you threw that bitch on the grill, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
That is excellent. I want to do another one
bunny,
of
not
those.
a
That bunny
dog.
was so good. The one I brought back from the one I had Goth shoot.
You mean the one you boiled to just a gray lump?
Blanched.
Yes, I may have blanched it. However, the animal itself was really, really tasty. I just had no seasoning in it. Which that's a good way to get it. Anyway.
So we talked about dots. Are we talking
Yeah.
about scopes too, or is it just irons versus other stuff?
I wonder if
'Cause
you
I don't
teach
have-
a
I
dot, the scope should already be kind of
I should probably open the show
understandable.
notes.
You say this is just like a dot, except it doesn't have a dot, and you can go further in with it.
Okay.
And they go, oh, okay.
I admit I did not have the show notes open, so
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there was anything going on here.
We did.
No worries.
That wasn't in there, but I think scope comes after those two.
Yeah.
Mounted backwards.
Yeah, Yeah, so a Navy admiral who has never shot a day in his life can do a
Excuse
nice
me,
pose.
sir. He was just doing hard mode. That's how much better he is than you.
He has to see everything 8 times further away and still hit it in the head. Yeah, now I know he's cheating.
He's like Hawkeye.
He downloaded some spicy Chinese hacks. He's got some aimbot going.
Watch this, dude. 360 no scope.
All right.
So Dave, I have a few questions about that rock real quick, and then we can move on. I was looking at the website. Does it come? It says circle dot or dot only. Does the circle dot option come with the changeable circle dot or circle dot?
Circle dot square.
Or is it just circle dot?
No, I think it's just circle dot, but I'm not sure.
Is yours circle dot?
No, mine's just dot.
Okay, yeah, mine's just dot, but I think some say
See,
circle dot.
the guy that you should be talking to is in the comments,
That's a good point.
and
Ask
you
him in the
changed
comments.
nothing.
Bob, is it circle dot only or circle dot?
It's circle dot or dot. That's
Okay.
it.
Circle dot. Now
Dude, I just watched that episode of
Up,
Big
up,
Bang
down,
Theory.
down, left, right.
It was absolutely anyway. So the rock is ideal because it's $200, and that's a killer deal for a red dot. Honestly, I'm going to have to send Bobbert a couple. Like, Sam, we need to go out and shoot this stupid scope so I can send it to Bob, and then I have another one I can send to Bob, and those 2 scopes will be perfect for a rock. And if you guys also want to try a rock on your child 22, use coupon code MOIST at GideonOptics.com. We'll save you 10%.
If you don't know how to spell, speaking of not having how to spell, you ready for my little humorous story today?
Your humorless story? I'm not really interested in humorless story.
Too bad.
I would.
We need to go pull audio of Bob saying moist and just play that every.
Dude, that's a great idea.
That's true.
He gave up the rights to his likeness when he came on the show.
Sam, write that down. That's homework.
He has no rights. Not here, at least. Anyway, I had to do front brake pads in my wife's car. Not the funny part. And it's not even that funny of a story. If you think of it the right way.
That was a great story.
So
Anyway.
I went all down to the old AutoZone, right? So wait up there, freaking nobody came up to the counter. Okay, and then freaking looks like he's 16, comes around the corner here. Oh, can I help you? Oh yeah, sure. I need to get brake pads for 2017 Chevy Traverse. Okay, 2017 goes down the menu. Chevy goes to the input the model, puts in T. Doesn't come up. Backspace. Chevy truck. T. Nothing. Backspace. Back up to Chevy. TR. Nothing. Back to truck. TR again. Nothing. Goes back up to the original Chevy, and just as his manager comes around the corner, puts TRE. And the manager goes, TRA. TRA. Because that's how you spell traverse.
God,
Is that your whole story?
That's my whole story. You had to be
Kid
there.
can't spell.
Kid can't spell for shit.
I
and
think
he'd worked at I'm
autocorrect.
surprised he didn't ask you if it was a manual or an automatic before he started typing.
No, but apparently they're not teaching kids how to spell the word traverse in schools anymore.
Oh, you need wiper blades? Do you have a full-size spare? I don't know.
I like going into AutoZone and being like, I need rear brake pads for a Toyota 4Runner and the 97, and they look at me like I'm insane because rear 3rd gen 4Runners have drum brakes, and I just like fucking with them. I need pads for a Tacoma. And they're like, what year is it? Like, it's not, I don't even have a Tacoma. Just give me the brake pads. I don't want to play this game.
My dad thought that story was funny.
No, that is
That's nice.
It's a humorous story because that's exactly what happens at AutoZone and why I just order things on Amazon now.
TREV.
I think my closest AutoZone is 150 miles away. 180.
What you just described was him waiting on autocorrect.
Actually, shit, you're probably not wrong. Because there was an awkward amount of time between him typing in the letters and him staring at the screen. Shit, you're right. I knew I should have gone to O'Reilly's. Anyways, my wife's front brake caliper is just totally freaking grinding metal, and she swore she didn't hear it. But
The woman never does that. Swear they like.
In her
I didn't hear it.
In her defense, she's legally deaf. So.
Oh, that is fair.
At least
you were
going to
make that joke. Sure.
My wife's
the third time I've used that joke in the last 2 hours. So.
My wife's Chevy Express threw a wheel weight, so there's a vibration in the front end, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't deal with this. We need to get it into a shop. And she's like, well, it'll be all right. I'm like, no, it won't. She's like, no, it'll be fine. She's like, she drove it for 4 hours the other day. And she's like, I didn't even notice it. Like, it's still vibrating, but she just does not notice it.
Just
like, can tune it out. And I'm over here like, there's no way that I could tune out a vibration of that magnitude.
That's where you put the earbuds in and you turn it up real loud.
Dude,
you can't feel it through your hands.
No, I don't hear that knocking. You didn't hear that knocking either.
I don't know if it's just being in tune with your car or being a person that knows how to fix things, but I can feel it when the pads are real close to being worn out. Like they grab different and they sound not metal on metal, but right before the metal on metal, when you've got just that hair of pad left, and it's like you're getting
the squelch bar.
No, pad right at the very end
break
of the
those
squelch
off.
bar. Not the squeal that the squelch bar is designed for, but the it makes this grumbly growl.
What the hell is the squelch bar?
It's a little tiny
pad.
piece of metal that runs on your rotor so that your it lets you know your brake pads are running down.
It yells at you when they get close to being out.
Never fucking heard that before.
Oh,
unless that's just what the squealing is.
I break them off.
Yeah, probably.
Exactly what that is.
I mean, when they squeal, I just thought they were having fun.
Nope, that's a squelch bar telling you it needs to be done.
I just tell mine are going out because suddenly 75,000 pounds. Holy shit! I'm driving a ship. 7,500 pounds of truck suddenly doesn't want to stop anymore.
Bro,
Fair.
if had that happen, like foot to the floor, nothing happened, and I'm like,
Ooh.
oh man, coming up on a stop sign, and I'm in my old Dodge, which was a 5-speed. And I start downshifting. And I'm like, I can't get fucking slower. And so I roll through the stop sign at like 50 in third gear. And I'm just fucking looking for trucks. And then I finally slam it in first. And we putz around through the truck stop parking lot, go about a half a mile right to the shop. Put a caliper on that, would you? Thanks.
I drove
my wife is
Honda
completely
Civic all the way
opposite.
across Denver with bad brakes. Like, I don't give a shit.
My wife will tell me any and every little tiny thing that is wrong with her car. And usually it's expensive.
Sounds about right.
Because it's a Tahoe. It's just a hoe.
Yeah, but it's got a TA.
It does have the TA. That's true.
It's a Yukon. So I'm going to get the letters DOIT and put them next to Yukon. You can do it.
100% approve.
Yeah,
I'm going to order them from GM so they match. It'll be classy.
Are you going to peel off the Yukon so that you can like center the whole thing?
Oh, absolutely not. It's just going to continue from Yukon.
All right. You had me going like you were absolutely going to do it, but you definitely threw me for a loop there. So cool. Thanks.
Mhm.
All right. One last question about dots before I give it up. Do you think the kids would have more fun with just a dot, or would they actually enjoy the circle dot?
Just a dot. Simplify it.
Yep.
That was quick from all of you.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Just the dot.
Give them a laser light. They'd have more fun with that. Just shine that shit around.
Yeah, directly
shine around.
into...
Tell them to find it.
What is the first thing every child does with a flashlight? Right in Dad's eyes.
Yeah, get one from China. No, are you kidding? They go in their own eyes first.
Wing. Like, oh, that was
Hey, what's
fun,
this like?
Dad.
Hey,
Look-
Dad.
Get one of the airsoft lasers from China that's not been neutered by the FDA. It'll be fine.
You mean the ones that can still like weld and cut steel simultaneously?
I mean, not that bad, but she's gonna give herself a little backroom LASIK.
I have a laser that I have lit a cigarette with,
That's cool.
and it's
Hmm.
blue.
Well, it
That's
turns
It's
out
one of
too,
those
if you
fucking those lasers that you see on Facebook ads. Yeah, I didn't buy it. It was gifted to me, and the batteries last all of a minute and a half. But motherfucker, it is hot. Hot.
it turns out if you before we move on to something else, since we're talking about things getting hot, if you try to use your TLR 1HL, pistol light for you're trying to dim it with your hand while you look for something in the bedroom while your wife's asleep, yeah, it burns the crap out of you within about a minute.
This is like the little Coast pocket flashlight that takes one AAA battery. But if you take the super battery out of your Chicro and put it in here, it actually cranks it up from about 110 lumens to over 250, I'm going to guess, maybe close to 300, but it gets warm.
That is,
Don't light yourself.
yeah, I was gonna say, is that like Olight warm or
Hold on.
Put it up your
While
butt.
we're waiting for Vince to spontaneously combust.
Hold on.
in about 30
All right.
to 45 business minutes, Vince is gonna spontaneously combust, and YouTube is going to ban flashlight
in next
holding
week.
on YouTube.
For the burning
Hold on.
man.
The burning. Show
All right.
title.
Vince's hand looks
Vince.
like he has harnessed some like unleashed
on.
power.
Unlimited power.
Hold on.
All right, I'm done holding on.
No, hold on.
No,
He's
I'm
gonna say,
done.
"Hold on" through the rest of the show.
If only I could mute you all individually.
Hold on.
All right.
Someone
All right,
save
I'm done.
us from this.
Dave, the spotlighting with Dave. We have some topics in there, and I'm very interested in many of them.
Wait.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Oh, I gotta kill both of you.
Oh, well, you didn't play it. It didn't.
I did play it.
He did
It
play it.
wasn't loud
Saying-
enough.
You were
It
too
wasn't
busy
loud
saying,
enough.
hold on. You actually drowned it out.
It was drowned out on its own. It was like, that's good. It
Anywho,
was very loud, very quiet.
All right,
Well,
pick
last
one.
time,
There's
you
some
guys-
down there. Just pick one.
I think that we should talk about what hydrostatic shock is, and is it bullpucky?
It's not
Well, that's where
bullpucky,
you
but
poop
yes,
through
let's
the
talk about
sunroof
it.
and they shock them, right?
Anybody that thinks it's bullpucky doesn't know anything about ballistics.
Now that's
physics, or-
when you mix the waterboarding and the
Ooh.
taser.
Ooh.
Ooh, that's a great
I see.
idea, actually. Waterboarding. Ooh. Now, do you shock them under the nose, or do you like?
So what is hydrostatic shock, Dave, since this is your lead?
I mean,
Oh, no.
well, no, we can do this.
We
Well,
can
that's
do
a big
the
word.
we can do
I
the
have a
taser. And the,
definition. Vince, what is hydrostatic shock?
can I?
I don't care.
Oh, go ahead, Mike. I want Mike to answer this.
All right. So your body, the human body, all bodies on the planet, all animals on the planet are made up of mostly water. We all learned this in like second grade. Hydrostatic shock comes from supersonic bullets
Your
when they
mom's
hit
not
you,
made of mostly water. Your mom's 70% something else.
which is still made of water. You ding dong.
I mean, if you want to look at it that way. Sorry,
I got the mouth
right.
sweats.
I
now.
couldn't help it.
So, if you have ever been on a lake, you know that boats make wakes. Boats make wakes because they're making, when you throw a rock in the lake, the rock makes ripples and they go out in a circle. Well, a wake is exactly the same thing. It's just the circle's going with the boat. When bullets go through the air, they do exactly the same thing to the air because air is a fluid. And when they hit your body, they do the very same thing because your body is also made of a whole bunch of fluid. And hydrostatic shock comes from those shock waves. It's basically the supersonic shock being transferred into the tissues of the body, and then those tissues rebound from that shock. They come together again, and it then they split a second time, and that's what further traumatizes the wounded individual. This doesn't happen with pistol rounds, which is why people say all pistol rounds are underpowered. If the pistol round goes supersonic, it's not underpowered. That's actually not true, because 9mm goes 1150 and it's still way underpowered.
5.7.
5.7 is it's a quick one, but it's still underpowered. Yeah.
500 Smith and Wesson, homie.
Okay, that's not a pistol round. That's a mortar.
For a less boaty explanation,
It's basically shockwaves.
Fast. The bullet's going to carry with it kinetic energy, which is going to be rapidly transferred into be it person, deer, or ballistic gel, the tissues and fluid of said, which is going to create a pressure wave, which is going to theoretically can rupture blood vessels, damage nerves, so on and so forth. And it's separate from the actual mechanical damage path of the bullet. The mechanical damage path being the actual physical bullet itself, or how much it expands and puts a hole through whatever you're shooting.
The reason this happens is because there's only so fast things can move. The speed of sound is much slower at 30,000 feet than it is at sea level, because the air is thicker at sea level. The same thing happens with water. And you have the sound barrier, you have a water barrier. That's why boats make wakes. They're breaking the water barrier as they move. So you have this supersonic bullet that's already going faster than the speed of air, and it's now going to create those wakes supersonically through your body. And that's why I created the analogy, so Sam's scientific explanation would actually make sense.
What if I told you that's all bullshit?
I'd tell you, sir, that your mom's a nice lady.
Okay, so it's not all BS, but
I was waiting for it.
The idea that the bullet impacting it transfers energy and then causes a pressure wave that damages capillaries and stuff far away from the initial actual physical wound channel has been roundly disproven, and it has been disproven for a number of years. It's simply that the people who I forget who first actually observed and coined the term hydrostatic shock. That was just a theory that they had, because it was observed that small bores using expanding bullets impacting medium-sized game cause the animal to go straight down right away without hitting major bones and without hitting the central nervous system. It was an observed fact. The observed fact of what people call hydrostatic shock exists. But the idea that it's causing a pressure wave, damaging capillaries and like brain tissue, or causing a blood pressure spike in the brain, that was another part of the theory. They thought it was causing a blood pressure spike in the brain, damaging brain tissue, causing the animal to go down immediately. That has been disproven, because a necropsy can show you whether or not there is trauma far away from the wound channel to support that theory. The theory that I like the best that I have heard is actually okay. So guns are not energy weapons. They are projectile weapons. Everything outside, after, you can talk about energy all you want, but until you start talking about the physical aspects of the bullet interacting with the target, you have to describe that, or it has to be observed, right? And when you are observing that interaction, there's actually some numbers that do matter. And the speed that the bullet is going, if the bullet is sufficiently frangible enough to expand on impact, matters the most. So when we're talking the classical small bores for hunting is everything under 35 caliber. That's a small bore according to big game hunting. Medium bores are 35 to 40 caliber. Everything above 40 caliber is a large bore. With small bores, the minimum velocity using a standard cup and core lead tipped hunting bullet is 2,600 feet per second to achieve that effect. I had a term. Okay, so the term that I came up with that I like to use is called a temporary shock response. And the theory I like best is that when the bullet hits, it's hitting fast enough and causing enough damage before the animal can have an adrenal response that it actually overloads the pain center in the animal's brain. You can observe this with other animals, including human animals. Whenever they get hurt, you'll see someone like get hurt by something and they'll just pass out.
I've done that shortly after my back surgery. My wife was helping me stand up from the bed, and something tweaked, and I went and woke up on the bed like 30 to 45 business seconds later.
Right. So you have a temporary shock response, and then if you hit the animal in the vitals, the animal goes down immediately, but it's technically still alive.
So it shock
but
response
it bleeds out. It bleeds out internally or externally even before it has the chance to get back up and try and run off. Something that supports this is that using small bores under 30 caliber on bigger game like elk and red deer and sambar and fallow deer, it has been observed that animals will go down immediately but then try to rise after 7 to 10 seconds but are unable to, and then they fall back down and then they die. And it's just because there's more fluid inside of them and it takes longer for them to bleed out.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that my own experience that makes me like that description of what's actually going on better is, okay, it was opening day of 2014 rifle season in Oklahoma. I shot an 8-point buck sitting in a stand in a thunderstorm in the middle of a field.
For you. He's like, damn it, I guess I'll just have to take this 8-pointer then. Fuck.
Like I was
tender.
Actually, I was sitting in a tripod in the middle of a field, not really near anything, and there's a thunderstorm that I'm watching roll in. I'm like, I better get out of here soon. Oh, a deer. Anyway. I shoot the deer.
Perfect.
And the deer goes straight down. He's quartering pretty heavily towards me. Goes straight down. I'm using a 300 Savage Model 99 with an old-style Nosler ballistic tip, which matters because the old-style Nosler was a very frangible bullet, opened up very quickly, did a lot of trauma really fast. The newer ones, they thickened the jackets on them because people were shooting them at elk and complaining that they didn't penetrate deeply enough. Anyway, that tangent. Deer went down immediately. And I'm sitting there, enjoying my success, about to get out of the tripod. After about 15 seconds, I see the deer just suddenly kick really hard and scoot into the grass next to the trail. I'm like, that was weird. He shouldn't have moved. So I get down to go check and see what's up. And about halfway there, he jumps up and starts hobbling off. So I put another one in him and he goes down, and I'm cleaning him out, and I'm trying to find that first wound to find out what's going on, because the second bullet hit him at the base of the skull. And I aimed at the shoulder the first time. That first bullet didn't hit the onside shoulder. It slid in between the offside shoulder and the rib cage and never penetrated his vitals.
Oof.
Never penetrated his vitals in the brisket out behind that shoulder, but he went down immediately, which should not have happened, right? If you're talking about some kind of pressure wave through the body, you didn't actually get a hold of enough tissue to cause some kind of response to the rest of the body. But you did cause enough damage quickly to overload the pain centers of the brain and cause the animal to temporarily lose either consciousness or motor control.
Like the bullet through all those muscles of his would have been like a searing hot knife. Just
it's actually
all the
less
way
muscle
through him.
right there. It was actually pretty a clean pathway, because in between that shoulder and that rib cage, there's not a whole lot of muscle. It's mostly just viscous material The muscles are like around the shoulder right there. So like
Oh,
mostly in between.
It went in between where the shoulder like overlaps instead
Yeah.
of like
Like shoulder, rib cage, it went in between there.
dude.
Like
you're right. That would not have
like slipped through a box canyon.
That is incredibly
slot
unlucky
canyon,
for that deer.
Yeah, but he went down immediately and then got up and ran off.
Maybe he was like, that hurt, you know?
But he laid there looking like he was dead. Like just laid there, like flopped over. And then suddenly he's like, whoop.
Mama always said, if I get shot, I need to play dead.
That's why you always poke your dead stuff.
True. In the eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be the don't poke it in the side with your rifle and go, are you alive? But no, you poke it directly in the eyeball, because if something is alive, it will not take very kindly to being stabbed in the eyeball. If it's dead, it's not going to care.
But when it comes to like terminal performance, you have your permanent crush cavity because bullets crush their way through things, and you have a temporary stretch cavity that can stretch and tear more tissue around that initial solid wound path. But the original description of hydrostatic shock has long been disproven.
And I think the mythos of it has been perpetuated because of temporary wound cavities in gel blocks.
Mm-hmm.
People see the bullet go in, and then the whole gel block go blub 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 blub, and then snap back in and go blub blub again. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that has caused more perpetuation of hydrostatic shock theory than what otherwise be done.
And then there's all the people like, oh, the energy transfer, it do the energy extra. And it's like, energy is required to do work. That is a scientific description. Then you have to describe the work that's being done. You can't just transfer energy, because if you're just transferring energy, a punch from Mike Tyson would have a wound channel like a 30-06.
So
like Mike Tyson in his prime, or Mike Tyson right
channel.
now?
So the effect that I described is a factual effect. I don't know if hydrostatic shock is the accurate term to use it, but that it does happen. Rifle rounds do that.
I don't think hydrostatic shock is, because the concept of hydrostatic shock is that you're giving what you described is more that temporary wound channel, that channel cavity.
It is, but what I'm saying is that temporary wound channel does and can cause serious damage.
But that can. But when people talk hydrostatic shock, they're talking about bullet hitting the animal and then a freaking shockwave being sent through the major artery to get to the brain to kill it.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
okay.
It's more kind of like the original hydrostatic shock theory had more to do with like some like, okay, are we causing some kind of shockwave in the body that's, you shot the animal, in the gut, and then, that caused neurological damage to the brain.
So I'm talking specifically about the actual hydrostatic shock to the body like you have the...
Well, I know what you're talking about.
So hold on. I didn't realize that there was actually a theory that you shot an animal with a rifle round and it sent shockwaves to its skull to... I didn't...
That's the original theory. That's the original theory
that
of
was
hydrostatic shock.
So what
but even talking about like the example you gave of like ripples in a pond, the level of violence of that initial impact of, say, like throwing a rock in the pond is far and away greater than like even a foot out from that. So you're still dealing with a very localized wound, but you do see a temporary stretch cavity on projectiles that are going very slow still. Like you get a temporary stretch cavity on some pistol rounds or even rifle rounds impacting below 2,000 feet per second still. You don't just see, one permanent crush cavity in gel. Compare that. What I'm saying is there's something else going on here.
You can still make a 45 hollow point do the big, huge ballooning in the ballistics gel. Yeah, you can make...
All right, that's it. We're no longer calling it hydrostatic shock.
Perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
Flubber.
The
Yeah, you
flubber
can-
effect, yes.
The
You
flubber
can see a
effect.
45 do the same flubber effect as a rifle, like it the temporary wound cavity and all that. And you're right. My example of the boat, like waves in a lake will go on forever until they get broken up by the lack of energy, and it takes a long time. When a bullet goes through the body absorbs the further out, the smaller the effect on it is. To explain and describe this, I can use two examples. I shot my pronghorn antelope and my elk with the same rifle, same bullets. Not the exact same bullet, because I never saw the when I shot the antelope
Through
with
the
the gun.
elk,
But
and you just got double points.
yeah, big game buck hunter was real proud of me.
You're like, well, shit. Good thing I got 2 tags.
It was with 30-06. The round went in, the pronghorn was quartering away from me, so it went in right at the white corner where I was aiming, and out left trapezoid or trap. That's not right. Anyway, it hit both her lungs and the base of her heart, and the hydrostatic shock is actually what shredded her lungs into tiny little pieces. Compare
the flubber
that
effect was what
right,
shredded her
right,
lungs.
right.
Okay,
The
there we
flubber
go.
effect. The flubber effect shredded her lungs. The bullet went through the base of her heart, and the flubber effect shredded those vessels. But the heart itself was intact because that flubber effect can't affect that dense of a muscle. Compare that to the elk, who got shot top left flank through both lungs, but I missed the heart. And the elk and her lungs of enormity had, each lobe of the lung had a 30 caliber hole in it with about yay-ish, very, very purple bruise on each side.
I think flubber lung.
And that is the extent of it. Like that little disc, that's where you get your hydrostatic shock. You get your
What you're
she got
describing
flubber lunged there.
is not
and
hydrostatic shock.
What
I'm
is
just
it?
saying that is a temporary stretched cavity. That's
That's the
temporary
flubber
stretch
effect.
And the
comedy.
fact that it's that big is the hydrostatic shock causing that. If an elk got shot with a 45 caliber bullet in the lung, it would not cause it that big of a bruise.
It's just a temporary stretch cavity.
That's
Well,
that's the thing.
physics.
Hang on, wait. No. That's the thing you have to separate. Okay, the whole term hydrostatic shock doesn't actually apply to temporary wound cavities, except for it's been misconstrued over the years.
That's what I'm saying.
They're separate things. So, like,
I am telling.
I know that.
I'm just trying to say there is an actual
But it's
physics
not-
term, and
No,
it
but
is
that's not the
hydro.
term.
Listen
No,
to it.
It is not.
Listen to me for a second and stop telling me no. Fuck. When something hard hits an object that is mostly water and is not moving, there is an effect on that, and that is called hydrostatic shock. It's a shock that thing takes from that impact. The bigger the bigger the
water
energy
not
transfer,
moving shock. Hydro,
yes,
water,
that's why it's
static,
called
not
that.
moving shock.
Yes.
But you're saying
No,
that it's
so-
making
so-
the water inside move, and that's why it's breaking.
Yes,
no.
That's why I
You're
used
talking
the
about
boat analogy.
You're talking about hydraulic shock. The
Oh,
term
fuck.
you're thinking
You're
of
right.
is hydraulic shock. Sorry, that's why I'm not trying to dog on you. I'm just trying to make sure we separate the terms. The water ripple effect is hydraulic shock.
You're right. It was hydraulic shock that caused the
But
lung
no,
bruises.
but you're good. But this is where stuff's been misconstrued because we take the term because hydrostatic shock is such a fancy sounding term. It sounds good, but then hydrostatic and hydraulic both start with H. They both sound similar, so it's easy they can construe those.
And you can have hydraulic shock. So, okay, if you want to call it,
Flubber
if
effect.
you want to use that, you can have that without having that temporary shock response of the animal going down immediately. You don't always get the animal going down
Right.
immediately and being knocked over without, let's just ignore that for now. People saying they knocked an animal over with a bullet.
It got that knockdown power.
You can have that temporary stretch, that bigger wound cavity, without the animal going down immediately.
Right. I was not trying to say that hydrostatic shock brings an animal down immediately. I was just using it to describe the effect that it has on the organs as the bullet goes through.
Mhm.
That's literally the effect it's having, is a hydrostatic effect, or a hydraulic effect.
Hydraulic effect. It's having. I mean, it is.
But it is a hydraulic effect on static tissue, is why it's called hydrostatic shock.
No.
At least in the terms of physics, that's how I see it. I've never heard
except I have read about this ad nauseum for years and years and years, and the different arguments about it. And I was reading about it before the show. Like it's people still argue about it on the internet. Go figure.
We're arguing about it on the internet.
Actually, no, we are, because actually, I'm not sure hydraulic shock is the right term either. It is. This is where this is why we made up our own damn term, flubber effect.
Dude, flubber lung.
That way, we could separate them for ourselves and not have to worry about what's hydrostatic, what's hydraulic. No, it's flubber effect and hydrostatic shock. Flubber effect is real. Hydrostatic shock is meh. Agree?
Okay, so
what I want to note something. Dusky a little while back said that bullet construction does matter. The bullet design is a huge factor, and that is very true, because you can have a bullet impacting at the same velocities, but depending on the construction, you can have a very, very different effect. So like a 147 grain ball from a 30 caliber versus, say, if you took a 9mm 147 grain hydro shock, and loaded that up in, say, a 35 Whelen, which you can do, and sent that into a target at the same velocity, they're going to have very different results.
Yeah.
But then you just have to have a bullet that is matched in both construction and weight to the target you are going after, which you're just going to have to do research on that. And the best research is observation. There's actually something I really like. The Nosler bullets, when you just buy the reloading components, have a little picture on the side of what the bullet looks like at the different impact velocities that it's designed for. So like on the partitions, it's got here down at 1,800 feet per second, it's somewhat expanded, and then 2,000 or 2,200, and then like up here at 2,800, and it's a nice pretty mushroom. And like the Varmageddons, it's like down here at 1,800 feet per second, and then there's infinity because it doesn't matter, because you're just vaporizing things. And it'll show you what the bullet looks like at the different impact velocities. But anyway.
So if you think about it, Vince, the only thing I was trying to say is that there is a point with, if you think about it, guns are kind of kinetic energy weapon, whether they do the crush damage, and there is a point where they do kinetic energy as well. Something going fast and hitting something else does kinetic energy. It's just physics. It's a question of whether it's actually if you've read about this at length, I want to understand what you're trying to say. What shredded the lungs to tiny little pieces in the pronghorn? Because it wasn't a 30 caliber bullet. It was the energy that it transferred that did that.
So that was momentum transfer, the bullet displacing tissue, which is kind of what you're saying. It's it's crushing tissue. First of all, it's crushing. Its expanded diameter is crushing tissue. And if it's crushing tissue fast enough, it's displacing some tissue and stretching the area around it. But you have to get into the mechanics of the bullet. That bullet is using energy to penetrate. as the bullet is soft enough, the target is pushing back on that energy with an equal and opposite force, if it can, trying to overcome that projectile. The projectile deforms, and the more it deforms, the more of the energy that it has is used to crush more tissue. It's essentially, you have to talk about the projectile. You can't just say it's transferring energy. That's cheating. That's an escape. That's not talking about what's going on. You have to talk about how the projectile is utilizing the energy that it has. It's doing work, penetrating first, and then it is being deformed as it goes, which adjusts how well it can penetrate.
That doesn't explain why the lungs are tiny little pieces.
Because okay, you're talking about the antelope?
Yes.
Because they're softer.
Yeah,
They're
that's
not
what
as
I was.
dense as elk lung. And so as it went through, it's displaced them fast enough that it tore more of the tissue. That's that temporary stretch cavity.
So you think that the bullet did the same size stretch cavity as it did on the elk? It just stretched them to pieces because they're smaller.
Because they're less dense. They're literally less dense than elk lung. Because they're smaller, they don't have to be as dense to stretch out and then contract more, because they're stretching more and then contracting more because they're bigger. They can be smaller. It's like you reach up into a chicken's like gullet to pull out the innards, and the lungs just come apart in your hands.
What angle did you shoot that elk at? Did you say again?
She was about 30 degrees, I would guess. Something yayish. Like the bullet went in here and came out here. It missed both shoulders entirely.
Also, I mean, a lot of people will clip the central nervous system and not even notice it, and you can have animals that go straight down from that. And there's also a bundle of nerves, I think, on the top or just in front of the heart of like deer, and if you hit that, they will just go straight down, kind of no matter what. Anyway, tangent.
That's good to know. Well, I think we can all at least agree that there's no such thing as like you shoot an animal and it makes it shocks its brain into going with some sort of shock wave.
I think it was Weatherby who originally really promoted that concept of hydrostatic shock. Like in the pursuit of that, he made ever smaller calibered cartridges with greater and greater capacity, trying to get the most velocity out of a bullet, thinking that just hitting it faster would cause that effect. Like the idea was you could take like a 24 caliber bullet and knock over a Cape buffalo immediately, but that just turned out to not be true.
Yeah. Dr. Scary Guy asked how honey badger bullets work, and they work through energy transfer. That's
I thought because they don't give a fuck.
Well, that's true too. But if they're the ones I'm thinking of, they're the ones that have the little cross like drilled out of them, right? The solid copper ones. Or is that a different round?
I think you're talking about the extreme penetrator bullets. Like those are the Lehigh Defense.
The ones with the cross in them?
Badgers.
Oh no, that's the Mike's talking about them.
Oh yeah, you're right. The Lehighs. Okay, so what is the honey badger then?
Dusky says they're similar.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's just energy transfer. They're spinning. Those things are spinning at what, 200,000 rounds a minute, Vince?
Depends on the twist rate.
Right.
That's what dictates that. So if you're, I don't know what you're shooting them out of and what the twist rate is, but if they're a non-expanding bullet, the extreme penetrators that I'm thinking of, they're working off of a slightly different concept where you're basically increasing the frontal area of the bullet and increasing the So the concept behind those is you're increasing the frontal area of the bullet and therefore increasing the amount of forward space that the bullet has to interact with the tissue, which so that's
You're
why
increasing the surface area.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're increasing the frontal surface area of the bullet, and therefore you have a greater capacity to displace tissue without actually having mechanical expansion.
So you're talking about putting more surface area on target material without actually having an expanding bullet.
Right. It's the same, the truncated cone bullets. So having almost kind of like a flat nose bullet, except it's disc shaped, kind of does the same thing where you are increasing the amount of surface area that the bullet has to work on without causing it to expand. It doesn't work as well as expanding bullets, but it does things.
This is a number 2 Phillips bullet. This is a number 3 Phillips bullet.
Is there a number 27 Torx?
No, but there's this fancy one that looks like you build public restroom stalls with.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I carry one of those around with me just in case.
I gotta get out of here. Yeah, very good.
Oh, Vince, out of curiosity, let me ask, since I'm now off in my own
Let him
little
piss you
rabbit
off more.
hole of bullets. No, I'm not trying to piss anybody off, trying to learn shit. God damn it, Dave. Fucking it was bullet related. I hate you, Dave. I hate you so much.
I do what I can.
You're such a peckerhead. I was going to ask about something about bullets and how that a specific bullet worked, but whatever. It wasn't important. Anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Well, that was very fun. So
if
what
you,
you're saying is my fancy hollow points have been loading are going to cause hydrostatic shock to eviscerate the brain if I shoot him in the leg?
yeah, that's basically what he's saying.
Shit. I got lied to, man.
Dude, there's all sorts of lies going around out there.
Well, a lot of it's just companies trying to talk to the lowest common denominator, and people are easily impressed by jargon, which is why you still have like, oh, it's got this much energy. And energy is great. Energy is required to do work. But if you're talking about like muzzle energy
doesn't matter because you don't shoot things at the muzzle normally.
Right. And that can be affected by a lot of things. And starting velocity matters, but it matters only in that you have a projectile that can hold on to that velocity at range. So you can have a higher BC bullet loaded at a lower muzzle velocity, which is better even 100 yards downrange than the faster bullet, just because it has a higher BC and holds on to velocity better. That's a whole other discussion even, but it's like people who get caught up in energy, these,
that's all the physics thing though. It's just that you take the physics of it, and a lot of people they focus too much on the energy, but they don't understand that they don't understand the physics of the energy at all. They don't understand that you throw certain size rock, certain speed, it has this much energy. It has this much kinetic energy.
Right. At some point,
you have to understand the. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, you have to describe how the energy is being used.
Right.
That's.
It doesn't help to say, oh, this 30-06 has got 3,000 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Well, I'm not going to shoot a deer at the right there. I don't care.
Energy, hydrostatic shock, knockdown power. Sam's muted.
I mean, you might shoot a deer right there. I mean, you're in the blind, you fall asleep, you wake up, Your muzzle's already pointed at its head, just like, well, all right, done.
You know, my dad did tell me a story about how he shot a deer and went to go get it, and the deer was not dead, and he decided that Dad instead needed to be dead and not him, and so he chased after him, and he was like holding on to him by the horns and trying to keep himself from getting like ganked, and then the deer like, all right, well, I can't gank him, so I'm going to run off. So disengaged, started to run off, and Dad says he just went bang, like point blank.
Stopping power.
Stopping power, and he just stopped.
Next, after this fascinating talk on hydrostatic shock, next week we will discuss stopping power.
It was a nice hydrostatic talk.
Stopping power, and then after that,
Wait, so this was all imaginary and in my head?
Speaking of stopping
Always
power,
has been.
what about this subsonic 22?
well, if you get it in the brain, it rattles around.
It was a sass and bounce.
Mm-hmm. Scrambled them.
Ooh, I love my brain scrambled.
All right. Well, that'll about do it, folks.
If you want your own Gideon Rock, use coupon code MOIST.
That's different from the rock you throw in the pond to create the waves to describe hydrostatic shock.
Yeah, it's
Different kind of rock.
Or
If you
hydraulic.
in the
If
lake.
you do throw yours in a pond, tie a string to it so you can get it back.
Yeah, and if it stops working, you can send it back to Bob, and he'll be like, "I question nothing."
Yep.
Because he knows better.
If you want some of Mike's Camerado, use coupon code
I
Let's
love
Go
this
Hunt.
sun shirt. This sun shirt is absolute tits, dude.
I do like the sun shirts.
Mhm.
They're so comfortable.
Though I melted part of mine back in November. I was
That
sad.
happens.
How did you do that?
Well, I realized that I had a bit of smoldering log leaning against my arm. I was like, man, that's uncomfortable. What's going on here? And I forgot that polyester melts.
What is that odd smell?
I've just got Ren and Stimpy's. It's log. It's log. It's better than bad. It's good.
Yeah, I was separating out the logs of the campfire and putting it all out because we were leaving, and realized that I had one of the logs leaning against my arm, and
It just wanted to cuddle. It wanted you to
Like-
take it home with it.
yeah,
It saw you were killing all the other logs and was trying to get you to not.
it's leaning up against me like, wait for it,
I'm too cute to kill.
wait for it, wait for it,
Hold on.
wait for it.
Hold on.
Hold on.
All right, Dave. Before he
Well-
drives me insane.
Support the
Too late.
sport and take a buddy hunting. If you like that buddy, tell him about our show. If you don't, give
if
him
you
a
don't-
high colonic.
We got to change that, man. Next.
Yeah, no.
I keep
hit us
forgetting.
Sam needs to change that.
I still don't know what that is.
At lghpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and let's go hunt.
Hold on,
I vote
hold on,
the flubber effect,
hold on.
the hydra conundrum.
Dude,
Write that down right now because